So I knew I wanted to kind of have a smaller ownership. And then once we started growing, it's like, okay, we're either going to have 12 partners because we're 4 or 5 times the size that we ever were, or we're going to have to change the structure. And so that's one of the things that we've done. So now we have an executive team, we have an extended leadership team to try to help manage the firm. And it's a little bit different, but it still is in a hands-on way, because that's one thing we didn't want to lose is partner involvement and really that kind of that hands-on involvement, because I'm an architect and I still like being an architect and I want to do that.
Have you ever wondered how successful architecture, engineering, and construction companies scale their business?
Or have you ever wanted guidance on how to get more growth, wealth, and freedom from your AEC company?
Well, then you're in luck. Hi, I'm Will Forat.
And I'm Justin Nagel, and we're your podcast hosts.
We interview successful AEC business leaders to learn how they use people, process, and technology to scale their businesses.
So sit back and get ready to learn from the industry's best. This is Building Scale.
Hey listeners, it's Will here. Our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy. If you've ever listened to our show, then you know that the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology. So if you suspect technology is your weak link, then book a call with us to see where we can help maximize your company's IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
Today's guest is Mark Davenport. He's the partner in charge at SPS Architects, where he's been shaping learning environments and communities for over 25 years. Starting as an intern in 1999, Mark's dedication and leadership have helped guide the firm's growth while staying true to its core values. We better the ball, we listen, we do what we say. I'm going to ask a lot of questions about those, Mark, so have that teed up for yourself. They have partnered with over 100 school districts, delivering safe, flexible, and inspiring K-12 educational spaces throughout Arizona. Mark is a registered architect and lead accredited professional known for building strong client relationships and advocating for solutions that meet the needs of both students and staff. He leads projects with a focus on collaboration, continual learning, and innovation, ensuring every space supports long-term educational success. And with all that said, Mark, welcome to the show.
Justin, you're hired. You could be my pitch man any day. Thank you.
Yeah. Like I said before we started, I'm all personality. I just hit it hard, and then that works out for me. Look, I just got a job, Will. That's pretty awesome.
There you go. You can dual role here.
Exactly. So before you go into how you got in the industry and everything, tell us about your core values. I listed them all off. Specifically, the first one, we better the ball. What does that mean?
So that's kind of like a sports analogy in when it's like, let's take what we have, or maybe one of the clients that we've been working with, and let's make it a little bit better than what they had last time. And sometimes it's a matter of, we don't want to do exactly what they've been doing. We want to try to push the envelope a little bit. And we definitely don't need to shoot for perfection, because then you never get done with anything either. So let's
For sure.
let's find some place in the middle and see how we can push that. And we've done that with several different clients in our history. Like, for example, we'd like to do this next generation learning environment whenever we can. And in some cases, it's like, let's just make sure we have windows in every classroom.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes tons of sense. So tell us how you got in the industry. How did you become an architect, or why did you become an architect? And then tell us about SPS Plus.
For sure. Yeah. So, well, for the younger generation, they may not know the Brady Bunch, but I just thought Ike Brady was like the coolest guy ever. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. My mom still has a document that shows back in the 3rd grade where I said I was going to be an architect, but I'm sure lots of kids said they were going to be an architect or a doctor or a fireman or a policeman. But for me, it was that. And so I just got into mechanical drafting when I was in high school, and it was my wrestling coach that was actually the drafting teacher. So I was like, okay, I'll try this. And I kind of liked it. And so I just tried it at ASU, and most of my friends and family like, what are you doing? You're not an artistic guy, but I've always been a problem solver, and it just kind of kept on going. Didn't even know what kind of architecture I wanted to do. And so I was placed as an intern in my junior summer. I went and studied abroad for 6 weeks in Spain and Italy, came back, did my internship, and I was just fortunate enough to be placed with a firm with great people that were doing great projects, and they were able to, we were small enough then that I worked side by side with the owners and got great mentorship. And it was like, this is the best. And it just kept on going. So 26 years later, I'm here.
Awesome. So how do you go from intern to managing partner? That seems like, you've lived the American dream now. Like you've done the thing. Like tell us what's the secret sauce to that?
Don't sleep.
No sleeping. Okay. Check.
Don't sleep, work harder than everybody else. I don't know, man. I think it really is. It's a combination of timing, of having some luck. Really, it is a lot of hard work and quite like just fortunate to have like found a niche that really that I can am just in sync with, and designing schools, and it was just like I just really am lucky to good people, like, cool types of projects, and it just kind of worked out, and lots of hard work too.
Was it always the plan to become a managing partner?
I knew that I was going to own whatever business I was in. I've always had leadership roles from a child growing up. And once I kind of decided architecture was going to be my thing, that's like, yep, I'll own my own firm. I just don't know when or how or what that looks like, but I just knew it was going to happen.
So keeping it loose, you had a vision and didn't know exactly how, but you got there. So that's what matters.
Yeah. And I was fortunate too with the folks that I worked with back then. They always said, hey, if you want to be a partner in this firm, you can, and here's a path for you, right? And so that's actually something that I've learned about myself, that I think that everybody else thinks that they have that opportunity with my firm, and I haven't done a good job of being that same mentor and leader to some of my other younger up and coming professionals. And this is something that's really come to light within the last couple of years. And so, like, shame on me. I better do a better job of that to make sure that my up and coming team members here know that they have that same opportunity here.
I love the candidacy. One of our core values is being candid. And so when you say that, you're very open to say, hey, like, I'm not perfect, right? Like that's,
I am not.
But knowing, right, which then leads to another one of our core values, which is continuous improvement, which is, hey, I know I'm not perfect, but yet I'm going to strive to try to get at least 80% of the way there.
Or at least better the ball, right?
That's better the ball. There you go. That all makes sense then. So then what does leadership then look like? So obviously you're the managing partner here. Do you have a full team? Are they partners with you? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I have one other business partner, and so we're actually in a different model than where we've been as traditionally as a firm. Our firm has always been relatively small, partner driven. There's always been 3 to 5 partners. At one point when I was brought in, there was 8 of us. And so for me, it was kind of like growing up. I had 5 brothers and sisters. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to have that many kids. This is crazy. And the same thing with the partnership. I'm like, this is way too many people to be able to make some decisions, because I knew I wanted to kind of have a smaller ownership. And then once we started growing, it's like, okay, we're either going to have 12 partners because we're 4 or 5 times the size that we ever were, or we're going to have to change the structure. And so that's one of the things that we've done. So now we have an executive team, we have an extended leadership team to try to help manage the firm. And it's a little bit different, but it still is in a hands-on way, because that's one thing we didn't want to lose is partner involvement and really that kind of that hands-on involvement, because I'm an architect and I still like being an architect and I want to do that.
So what is the breakdown between the executive team and the extended leadership team? What's the differentiation and how is that structured throughout the firm?
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff is, and I'm still figuring some of this stuff out, because again, I'm an architect, I'm not a business owner, I am an entrepreneur, but so we've got COO, I have a CMO on my executive team. My business partner, Richard Begay, is on our executive team too. And I had a CFO, but realized, okay, I don't think I need a full CFO. So we have a controller that's in there now too. So there's the 5 of us on our executive team. And then one of the things I realized as we created this executive team was, boy, I only have my partner that's an architect in here, and we're an architecture firm. So we need to have a little bit more, perspective on where the firm is going. And so my extended leadership team is made up of the 3 studio directors that we have in our office. And so a change that we made a few years ago was to create our office. It was one big office trying to manage all this work, and it was really hard. And so we broke it up into almost like 3 smaller offices. So the head of each one of those small offices, each studio, is in there. On the extended leadership team, we have our director of construction administration. And what's important about him, John, is that he's involved with so many of our projects and he gets to see them through construction. So he's in front of our clients a lot more than even our architects during the design process. So we have them. We've got one of our business development folks that's in there because they're out there too. So we want to have a good pulse on what's happening in the studio, plus what's happening in when our projects are under construction, plus while we're in our pursuits. And then we have our HR manager that's in there too. So, and then recently we also added our BIM manager because that's huge for our efficiency and our production. And he's the guy that knows where we need to really kind of help make change. So it's a really dynamic team of people that can really have some say into the direction of the firm. And so I titled our executive team the BOT, which is the business operations team. And
Okay.
SET, right? So we have BOT and SET. And so SET is our strategic execution team. So it's almost like our executive team reports to our extended leadership team because it's like our strategic execution team, which are the people boots on the ground, they can tell us here's our struggles. And now our executive team's job is to what can we do to either relieve these pressures or put some things in place to help them do their jobs better.
So, okay. A lot of pressures happen because of people. Look, everything would be easy if people weren't part of the business, right?
Right.
Which means sometimes you have great fit people and sometimes you have not so great fit people, right? And as much as you want to plan, I heard this phrase recently, I think people plan and God laughs, I think is the term. So we can plan all we want, but eventually some plans don't work out as well. How do you manage that? How do you know who to keep, who to hire, and promote into leadership?
Boy, Will, you really kind of tapped into something here for us.
Ooh.
So we use the business operating system called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And one of their big things is they have an accountability chart and work really hard on right person, right seat. And so we do a good job, I think, of hiring the right person. And so that's kind of the cultural fit. And so we make sure that we have the right person. And if we work to find the right seat and make sure that we have everybody in their highest and best use. And so when it comes to promoting people and transitioning into other roles, we've done a terrible job at it, like really bad. And so, when I said we created these studios and put some studio directors in place, one of the things that we're going through right now is, I put one of my guys there because he's one of the guys that says, whatever we're doing, give me the marching orders and I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to be that best guy. Awesome. The other guy, he's been here almost as long as I have. And so he knows all the history of our firm, but he can't juggle. Right. So have these people in these roles for about 18 months. And then they kind of figure out along the way, like, man, this is really stressful. And, from me, Mark, that was like, I had a good mentor by my side and said, here, go figure it out. And I could bounce things off of him. And that's how I learned. It's like everybody else can learn that way too, right? No. And so we're actually right now, I spent some time this first quarter of the year to find out, let's really define what this studio director role is. And then let's find out what does a training program really need to be to put somebody in that place. And so I've been developing that. And so really now this month, we're going to roll out almost like an open call. Who wants to be a studio director? Because two of the guys say, I want to get out of that role because they're not in the right seat. And so we want them to put them in a better seat where they can be at their highest and best use. So we're kind of doing an open call. And then I built what is like a training platform for here are the things that you need to be able to do and do well. Like first, just by starting to write that out, it was a pretty big move for us. And so we did that. And so I feel pretty confident about that. And so we got like a 0 to 3 month training, a 0 to 6 month and a 0 to 12 month training program, because we might have some people that have the overall qualities to run it. They may not have the experience. So, okay, let's build this program over 12 months and see when that might happen. And there's checkpoints along the way to do that too. So I'm pretty excited about that and getting the right people in those places.
Kudos to your two studio directors that didn't let title or ego get in the way of saying like, hey, this just isn't the right seat for me, right? Like, I feel like that's hard. That's a difficult thing for people, because you get put in a place and you want to obviously do right and do good, and intentions are all high. But if it's a seat that's just like you're only at 70% capacity of what you could produce if you were in a different seat, just simply because it's your magic, right? Like, it's like, oh, if you get into that magic seat, the sky's the limit. There's no stopping you. So kudos to them for saying, hey, like, I think there's a better seat for us.
Yeah, and my COO is really amazing. I hired him over 2 years ago now, and my number one job was, hey, I want you to listen to our architects and our designers and to find out where their challenges are and like connect with them as people. And from there, we will learn how to plan better and be more efficient and things like that. And so fortunately, he's built up a really good trust with our team so they can come to him and say, I don't think I'm doing the best for my team, and have that conversation. And so that's one of our best things that we have about our firm. We have a culture of people that care and people that want to help each other. And that's what I hear from most people after I've hired them. They're like, this place is different than others. Yeah, you guys have crazy deadlines and all the other things like most other architecture firms, but you care about each other and you try to do what's right for your team.
Love that.
So, the care factor is super important when it comes to RPRS, right? So you've got the right person, which in my opinion is harder to find than necessarily the right seat. How does a conversation like that come up? Was it where they came up to you or came up to COO, or did you have to confront them and they go, yeah, actually?
It's a combination of things, right? So it's like sometimes there's just things that aren't working, right? So in one case, it was 6 months ago that one of the studios, their invoicing was half of what it should have been. I'm like, what's going on here, guys? Or just, one of the major roles of a studio director is communicating with the client and the team. And when I hear a lot from clients or teammates that are like, hey, I'm just not quite sure what's going on, it's like, well, studio director is busy working versus communicating. Like, that's the number one job. We're there we're telling people what we're doing, telling people what we're not doing, and setting the expectations and manage them. So, we actually recently had one with another person that was in the director role, and it wasn't working. And so have the conversation. It's like, hey, I think this is going to be a better place for you because you're the right person, but I think this is going to be a better thing. And in that case, I'm not sure what got in the way. And she was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go try my chances someplace else. And so unfortunately that happens sometimes too. And in this case that I'm talking about, that could have been because there was a few transition when you're moving to the third or the fourth seat. And they're like, I don't think I want to go through this transition again. So it could be that something that's tied to that too. But yeah, who knows? It's a combination of things.
Those are tough conversations to have. I guess what's the best word? Do you hedge on those, right? If it's a key person in a key position, especially in leadership, right? Do you hedge or do you have more of a hopeful strategy around when you have that conversation?
I typically have more of a hopeful conversation because one, I start them with, hey, do you think that this is working? Right? Because if I don't think it's working, it's highly likely that the other person, it's not working for them too, right? And so if they're in a stressed out situation and I know that it's not working, so I'm in a stressed out, let's figure out what do we need to do? And in some cases, it's not with each other anymore. And in some cases, like, can I go help you find something else? Because at the end of the day, I want people to be happy in what they're doing. And if they don't feel like they can do that here, I can either help show them how they can have that here, or it is time to just part ways. And in some cases, my hope for these things drag on the situation longer than it should. And that's probably one of my faults that I got to try to figure out. But like, I've got a thing that like, no, this person's a good person and we can make it work.
Okay. Well, I definitely appreciate that insight. I think that's tough. And, there's where do loyalties lie versus, I want to give the person a chance versus, I guess, where they're only doing 70% of where we need them to be 100%, essentially be in their magic or their zone of genius. Are metrics the only way to recognize that?
We're not the best with metrics either. So, I mean, in some cases,
Love your candidacy, Mark. I love the fact that you're like, I'm not going to bullshit you. Like there are areas for improvement.
I mean, I wish we had some good ones that I could be like, yes, that's a good one, but they're just not that great. And so in some cases, like, and I know this isn't good for scaling up my business, is like me having a pulse on things. And as we scale up, I just can't have a pulse on everything. So right now it's my time. And so that's the only way for me to really kind of have it. At the end of the day, like, for example, we're having a transition with our business development team right now. And it's like, yeah, we're not converting some of the work, but I know that that the relationships are there. I don't know why it's not happening. And some of my own faults are like, yeah, but that guy, and he probably had this. And so I can give maybe too much grace in some cases versus really trying to hold accountable to some deliverables. And, well, I like the guy, so yeah, we'll give him a break. And then 2 years later, it's like, shit, we're still not getting anywhere,
I feel like it's always a balance, because I do think KPIs are important. I inherently believe that, but I also think, like, did you set people up for success, right? Like, that's the other question, right? So it's like, well, they're not hitting what I want them to hit, okay, so that's a problem. But at the same time, have I given them all the tools necessary to then hit that number, whatever it is, if it's a design number, if it's a business development number, what have you? It is a balance, I think, to that, because I think the best business does have a human piece to it, where it's like, you're a human being, they're a human being. Like, there has to be understanding to those things, and it is a balance. So I would give yourself more credit than maybe you're giving. You obviously have grown. Like, you obviously have been able to do scaling. Like, you've been doing these things. You've broken up a multi-tier executive and then leadership team, or the bot in set, as I love. So you are setting things up in different ways. So give yourself a pat on the back. Not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I appreciate that too. And one of my biggest realizations this year was just for me to try to kind of document what some of those expectations are, because I talk a lot, right? And I can talk about it, but it's like, but I also talk fast. So it's like, let's try to get them documented so that we can at least have it there and I can refer back to it. It's like, oh yeah, I did say that. And so that's probably one of the things that I'm working on the most this year, is trying to document some of these things, just so that the path is a little bit clearer for somebody. Because you tell somebody something, they're going to retain so much of it. So it's like, if they can at least go back. Now, will they go back? That's a whole nother question, but at least they could, and it's there. And I can be like, hey, refer to this, please. And then we'll talk again.
Sounds like an AI idea. Have someone next to you on your shoulder, so to speak, that can listen to everything that you're saying, have instantaneous memory recovery, and then can, what did he say again? Someone else asks.
Well, you know what? My best friend has been these past couple months is just Chat GPT. It's like, okay, I'm saying it. I'm just going to turn on the microphone and then let it transcribe it for me. And I can be like, let's put this into an outline form. It's like the best thing ever for me to be able to start documenting it.
That is, can you give a more concrete example of how you're using it, without obviously really revealing too much, but hopefully it's not something super secretive?
Well, just like this, like the studio director thing, like I started spouting off at our quarterly planning meeting. It's like, these are the most important things that a studio director needs to do. All right, let's just put that in Chat GPT. Hey, can you build me a little outline around this? Okay. And then the ball starts rolling, right? And then you're like, okay, yeah. Oh yeah, I gotta remember to put this part in. So the biggest thing for me now is, let's make sure I dedicate some time to do that work. because it's so easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of like, I got these emails and I got these things, but what's I'm a big Stephen Covey guy and the 7 habits. And so it's like, what's that quadrant 2 work that you got to do? Yeah, there you go. Perfect. I love it. So it's like, I just never dedicate enough time to that quadrant 2 stuff. And it's setting us back from really continuing to scale and helping my team. And that's just what I just, that's my focus of 2025.
It's awesome. All right. So process, right? So process is important. EOS would tell you process is everything, as you mentioned, you're an EOS company. What are processes that you're currently trying to build or that you have built more recently?
So, I mean, that's the biggest one. The other one actually that's pretty huge for me and to kind of getting out of like a lot of the day-to-day stuff is our fee proposals. Because I've got so much up here and all the nuances. Like if I were to build a decision matrix of an if then what now, it would be as big as this wall back here, right? So it's like, no, that's not going to make sense. So I'm trying to build that over this next quarter is building out, okay, what does this first framework look like? And I'm building it off of a sample project. And then we can start to list some of the things that could happen, because again, you can't really do that in a way that would be easy to kind of go back to and refer to. But I'm going to start with kind of this outline form with some examples, and then we can start to build on it with a few other kind of example type projects.
So trying to create your framework of decision making so that someone else can follow it. And frameworks are the best because you should have some loose, abilities within that framework. So it's not necessarily left or right. It's somewhere maybe in the middle, but the major pieces, right? This is a hard no. This is a hard yes. This is going to cost way more if it's done this way, right? This is going to cost a lot less if it goes this way. Having those frameworks and then writing it out, super helpful, because then it helps get everyone on the same page that doesn't necessarily understand your process or hasn't done this for 35 years. So do you try to make it perfect the first round?
No. I always say version 1. This is version 1, guys.
So version 1, at what point do you feel like it's good enough that you can publish it sort of out in the open where you feel comfortable enough that anyone else following it, this should do, right? There might still be some mistakes in it. I understand. But at what point do you say, yep, this is good enough to start following?
That's a good question, Will. And I'm trying to be better at that because I'm good with like releasing my chicken scratch, right, guys? This is good, right? Go. And so I remember our first version of our compensation matrix, and it was so complicated and it was so like precise that it caused so much like issues within my office. And I'm like, my gosh, we're just trying to provide a guideline. And I kept on saying, this is just a guideline. So I'm like, okay, I have to keep saying this. The matrix needs to show this, right? So after 2 years, I'm like, I need to do this. And so I kind of reworked it and I'm like, I don't feel good about it. So I've been a lot more hesitant on just pushing things out the first time. And so I really worked hard on simplifying it, making it something that is legible. And then what I do, novel concept, is share with my leadership team and get some feedback.
Oh yeah. Buy-in from leadership team definitely helps, especially if they're the ones that ultimately are going to have to either teach it or sort of distribute it amongst their studios. That totally makes sense.
Well, and that was like the thing. It's like I was telling the guys, hey, here's what you do, but none of them could kind of distribute the information downstream. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, it's because none of them were owning it, not because they didn't have any authorship in it, right? And so it's like, okay, so like, painfully, that's how we've learned some of our most of our best lessons is the hard way and all the scars that we have to prove from it, but we have some really good stuff as a result of it.
Well, I love hearing about the progress as well as the candor on that is a work in progress. When we talked before, because I think this heavily affects process. What was the breakdown in your firm's work, and has that changed since you've become managing partner?
So we've always been a K-12 firm. I'd say back in the day, we were a majority of, it was probably 80% school work, and now it's probably 60%. And I would say 80% of our work kind of back in the day was in rural communities and 20% was in the metropolitan area. So we've switched that to probably be 80% in the metropolitan Phoenix area and 20% rural, because I don't ever want to lose that, because I don't know, there's something about working in our rural communities. They appreciate the work that you do versus sometimes in the valley, it's like, okay, what have you done for me lately? Somebody else is calling me. I'm going to try them out. So it's like, okay, sometimes it feels like a commodity. And I just know that we provide a better service than our competitors. And it's like, boy, you guys are really missing out. And you should appreciate this good stuff that we're doing too, right? So that's probably some of the bigger shifts. And I think another thing that when I started versus where we are today is we were really a service-based firm. And so you weren't going to jump on our website and see any sort of award-winning work. And so it's like, we are architects. We do want to design cool things. And so we kind of went a little bit too much on the design side. And some of our clients were like, hey, what about this balanced approach thing? And so I think that's where we are today, where we have a really good mix of some high design, but also with that service approach. And one of the things that I talk to our clients about a lot is it's like, you don't have the budget to do cool shit everywhere, but let's find out where that really money should be spent on your project, whether it's the entry or whether it's the common space, and let's put it there, and then let's still work within the budget and the schedule that you have.
The trick is to always make the band room really cool. As a former marching band kid, what's the breakdown of the different studios? So you have three separate studios, or three separate studios. What's that breakdown?
So one is in Tucson, so that was a pretty easy break, and so they handle most of the Southern Arizona work, but also other projects across the valley. I try not to put them on too many things in Flagstaff, but it does happen that way sometimes. And so I would say in the Tucson office, they also have a probably a heavier focus on higher education, and then also some of the multifamily work that we do, and maybe a little bit more commercial. And then the two studios that we have here are pretty evenly split. One is the main focus is K-12 with a little bit of sprinkling of other things. And then the other studio is probably a 50-50, like healthcare, multifamily, and commercial, and then K-12. K-12 is still kind of the big push. Everybody's got to kind of do that K-12 piece. I think that's part of how we deliver our service also is really how we work with our K-12 clients, which is really an over service. Hey, we're going to over communicate. We're going to do everything you need until you tell us to pull back. And some of our commercial clients see how that is, and we can't charge the same because, it's a heavier intensity of an involvement on our K-12. So some of our commercial clients don't want to pay for it, right? So we figure out what that balance is. But a lot of our commercial clients just aren't used to that type of like hands-on involvement. And so they really like it.
So what's the vision? Obviously you're K-12, that's the bread and butter, that's not going anywhere. But you have these three studios. Is the idea to eventually break them off more regionally, or is it more, no, like we are going to push for that medical space, so we're going to have a studio that is really more dedicated to that, or commercial, whatever that breakdown is? Is there a vision that you have for where these studios go in the next 3 to 5 years?
I haven't thought of it in that fashion. I mean, I still like thinking of them as little offices, and in each little office will have their different specialties that they do. I know my competitors, they do have like a healthcare studio and the different market sectors, and it probably makes sense, right? But also, I mean, I kind of keep thinking about how it was for me when I was growing up, and I like doing lots of different things. And when I talk to our staff, they don't want to just do one type of an architectural project. So I think having that flexibility, even though it does hurt our efficiency in some ways, I think it just provides for a better career for the people that we have.
Yeah.
So,
And balancing that efficiency with keeping people around, right? Like there's
Yeah,
an
yeah,
inherent
totally.
value that comes with that. Different, just essentially a different school of thought.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, but yeah, it's a good idea. That's why I do it.
That's why you hired me, Mark.
so uh, let's talk a little bit. Are you still doing any architectural work yourself?
I am, but not as much. And like the amount that I'm doing, like for example, like we got a project at one of our schools, and my K-12 architect guy, he's doing his thing, and so I talk with him about, before the meeting, hey, what are our expectations? What do we want to try to accomplish with this meeting? And then here are the constraints of the project. Let's try not to go outside of these things to promise something that we can't deliver, because then walking that back is really, really hard. And then after the meeting, okay, here's what we have. And then I'll look at progress, and then we'll kind of have a little design charrette. And I'm like, let's kind of do this with the building. Or, there was a curved component of the building, but they had a pretty tight budget. And it's like, you know what, we're going to be spending a lot more money on the cool curvy thing versus let's make this rectangular, and we can get a little bit more square footage in there for the same kind of a cost when you're looking at it. And so, my architect was like, but they really like this curve. I'm like, let's bring them the option next time to see if they want this smaller building that's got these curves in it, or a rectangular building that's got a little bit more space and flexibility. And, I'm not the biggest fan of curved buildings because you can't put furniture in there. Like, okay, neat. What are you going to put in the corner? There is no corner. Okay. So, so we did bring that to them, and of course they went with the simpler shaped building so they could have more space. And so it's things like that. And then it's like, it was an athletic facility, and it's like, hey, did we get a training room in there? Because you got to have the training room. So just helping make sure that nothing kind of slips through the cracks, and we're thinking about all of the potential aspects. And it's like, the training room example. Well, they didn't ask for a training room. Yeah, but they may not have known to ask for a training room. So that's our job, is to, while we're putting things on paper, flush out all of those ideas, because they'll come up with that idea under construction, and then we have to figure out how to go fit it in there. It's like, nope, we have to do that on the drawing boards early on.
It's a lot cheaper than when you already have construction material on site.
Cheaper to build it. It's cheaper for us to design it, right? Everything.
Fresh, clean slate versus I'm now trying to do an addition or a rework.
Yep.
So this is something that we've talked about with a few firms. Wanted to get your perspective on sort of your experience with the different type of contracts, the different sort of contract types, and where you're seeing the industry going.
Like with the construction kind of contract, or?
Yeah, so the fee structure based on a percentage, based on construction costs, straight time materials, stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we do, I really try to do it based off of a cost of construction, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to help inflation for me. Like, I don't care what my hourly rate is. If we're keeping up with the cost of construction, it's going to keep our firm fluctuating with whatever the times are like that. So, in some cases, it's, like, and we do that a lot in our K-12 world. In the multifamily world, it's a cost per door. So it's like, okay, and we scale that based off. We got this interesting matrix that says if it's a smaller project with smaller doors, it's going to be a higher cost per door. Then we look at the complexities and however many amenities they're going to have, and so that goes into our matrix. But then in that case, it's like, okay, every couple of years we're going to have to increase that cost per door, because there's no other way to adjust for inflation. And the same thing with an hourly rate. And at the end of the day, whenever you're doing like a time and material or an hourly rate guess at how long it's going to take, excuse me, it's really hard to guess how long you think it's going to take. So I always try to go back to the cost of construction as one way to check to see, is my fee going to be right? And so at the end of the day, we can build our fee however the client wants to see it, but I'm going to use some of my time tested things to be able to feel good about it. And the other one is, we're typically a certain percentage of the total fee, like the engineer component of our fee, of our total fee, is going to be anywhere between 30 and 40%. And so I've got 2 or 3 different ways to kind of back check my number to make sure it's going to go okay. And then, hey, client, Mr. Client, whatever you want to use, we'll sign that contract.
the final authority on checking numbers?
I am right now, which is why I said earlier on, it's like that's my big thing to try to document so I can really kind of hand that off. And I've been trying to do it, which is essentially in a, hey, here's how we do it this time, and working directly with the people that are building these fee proposals. And like, boy, it's been a couple years now. It's just not coming second nature to them. But they've got 10 other things that they're working on, and it's not their biggest thing. And in some cases, it's like, do they remember, hey, this is how Mark built it? Probably no. Mark just said to do this, so this is what we're doing, right? So that's my bigger thing. And I also had I had my accounting team that was driving these fee proposal meetings, and it's like,
Ooh.
yes, I know. Hey, where were you 2 years ago, Will?
That's like never the other. It's like the other learning lesson. Never have lawyers negotiate business deals.
Yeah, exactly. So and they don't really know how to do it either. So it's like, okay, so we switch the responsibility to the architects, but then I have to have somebody that is continuing to stay on top of my architects, because one of the good things about my production staff and my architects is they are a projects first team. So it's like, we're going to work on our projects and deliver a good set of drawings and good designs first. Everything else will happen later. Like billing, oh, later. The next project, oh, later. I don't want to do that. So now it's like, now we have to have an accountability system to make sure that they do follow up and track on these things to help make sure they get done, and a proposal doesn't sit there for 3 weeks because we're waiting on something. It's like, no. So
Losing momentum sucks, especially if it's detailed work that needs to go into it. I understand. Details are important because that's where margin is.
yeah, for sure. And so we use Culture Index. It's one of there's many different things to utilize. And so most of my architects are a high D person, which is like, they need a lot of data to be able to kind of move forward and make a decision. In many cases, when you're putting a fee proposal together, you don't have much, and you have to make some guesses at things. And you say, here's the guess that I'm taking. I'm going to put this down on paper, and then we know the basis of what the proposal is. My high detail guys and gals, that does not work with them. I am a low D guy. Like, let's say this is the even line. I'm way over. I'm off the screen when it comes to how much detail I need. And most of my architects are like, right here towards this side over here. So it's like, so many times I can frustrate them because I'm like, we don't need much. Let's go. And they're like, we need so much more.
That's very funny. For COO, high detail, as you could imagine, as a COO would be. So I remember many times having conversations with her and thinking in my brain, like, why the hell do you want that? Like, why do you need me to give you more? I already know the decision. I know the path we need to go. Come on, like, let's go. Like, let's do this thing. But then we took one of the tests. It wasn't that one, but it was another one, and it literally was like so obvious. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a 4 and you're an 8. So like the distance about details that we have in between each other is enormous.
I'm a 2, by the way.
Yeah.
I've taken Culture Index. I've actually taken it multiple times over years, completely forgetting about it, and then doing it again, and I get the exact damn result, exactly the same every time, like down to the point. I was like, this is scary accurate. So I come out as a philosopher. If that says anything to you?
Oh, yes, you do know. I'm a rainmaker.
Okay. So we're in the same. We're very similar categories. So the low D, high A.
Yep.
And I forget what the other ones are.
So highly autonomous, highly social, can multitask really easily, and do not need very much detail before making any sort of decisions.
Okay.
Dangerous type, all gas, no brake.
Uh-huh.
So hence my like, yeah, I'll issue this thing to my entire company, and then they all go haywire with like, what is this? It's just a guideline, not for my high DP.
I've been told that I like to create chaos. And so our COO has to tame chaos, and everyone looks over at me so I'm not allowed to be in operations. I got fired from operations, and that's why I'm CEO. So firing yourself from the day-to-day duties. I'd say that's a good way of putting it. Once the sort of current process fee proposal is done, what's the next big thing?
Oh boy, that's a good one. I think at that point, I will start to work on some regional growth plans for us because we do have those opportunities out there, and it's been on that horizon, but it's like there's still a lot of work that we're not winning here, and I want to tackle that. And so I think we can start to take on a little bit more of that, and the studio director thing is happening better also for us. I think that's kind of happening at the same time. And I think that's going to help my team because I'm also in the day to day a little bit of making sure that our cash flow is still there and our revenue is still there and our billings are still there. So I'm hoping that getting the right people in there and planning our workflow better is going to help automate that a little bit. So automating some more of those things are critical because I have the capacity to jump into any other growth other than what we're in right now. And so I think that's probably where my next big thing is, because a big thing that's becoming harder and harder is my competition's getting better and better. And so I definitely don't want to fall to the wayside of I'm going to take the scraps because these guys keep kicking my ass. And so that's another thing that we're kind of working on at the same time, to maintain our competition. And that might mean to grow more so that we have a better resume, more kind of R&D capacity to show that we're experts in the fields that we're in. And it seems like that's kind of where our marketplace is going. So as I do that, then we can start to look at what additional growth means. And I think it is now in a regional type of a way.
That allows you to have more of that time on the business, right? We
Yeah.
talk about in EOS where it's like, are you working in the business or on the business? And like doing all the things you just mentioned is like, well, those are all on the business. That's not I need to deliver this project by this timeline, or I need to go through this change order or whatever is happening on the day to day. That's hey, like, how do we make sure that we're competing at a high level with our competition? Does that require us to grow to get that R&D support, or how much time of the bot or set can put towards on the business compared to in the business roles that they obviously have to take care of as well? So it's interesting, grow to grow, essentially, right? Like that's the idea. Like I need to grow. I need to hit this next thing, or we call it like early hire, like hire a role that's earlier than I maybe need it, but it'll grow into that and it'll speed up the growth for the company.
What's funny about that? I was talking with a business consultant about that, and he's like, so I bet you're a very conventional business owner. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like I do a lot more risky things than my former partners do. Like my former partners would count the coffee grinds before they'd order more coffee, right? And I'm like, order as many K-cups as you want. We're going to be great. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm such like a risky guy here. And we just go with the seat of our pants. And so this business consultant was telling me, he's like, well, I bet you hire when you can foresee a need, or you're not hiring to grow. You're hiring because you have a busy workload and you care about cash flow and care about paying people bonuses at the end of the year. And I'm like, well, yeah. He goes, yeah, it's a pretty conventional business owner. I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm not a very risky guy willing to risk it all for growth. But one of our strategies is when people ask me about what our growth plan is, it's like we want to work on the types of projects that we want to work on and work with the people that we want to work with. And so that's probably not the best growth strategy at the end of the day, but it's one that we have, and it's one I think on why we can keep good people too, because we're not going to make them work on things or with people that are just crappy. Who wants to do that? Not me.
Definitely. You know what? It says a lot about strategy. That is definitely a strategy.
It is,
and
yeah.
It works. Like that, we call that niching, or niching for those that want to be politically correct in terms of grammar. But niching is a great way to help go, well, this doesn't work for us as a client, and this all, it's a good way to say no, and a good, so where can you say yes and succeed, right? Which is awesome, right? So it gives you leverage in what you're doing. There is a scale to that. Speaking of scale, how do you leverage technology, to help you build scale in your business?
That's another thing that we're embarking on right now too. We've learned over the years that we can't bring on a technology tool to help with anything unless we have our processes mapped, right? It's like,
Yes.
yeah, I know. It's like, let's bring this in and it's going to fix everything. No, it's not. And so right now we have an accounting software called Azura, and we've got a different CRM called Uninet, and we've got a different operations software called Reich, and they all kind of work. And so we're embarking now on a 6-month journey to kind of go to an ERP within the AEC space. And it's like, you try not to get buy into, oh, it does all these things. And it's like, if it does all these things, then it doesn't do one thing great, right? It's like, it has to do our accounting system like the best, because what one we have now is just garbage. And then secondly, it has to help us plan and like the minimalist way of planning out a project. And then third, like we have to have a way to put some leads in and be able to follow up on them. And so it's like, okay, we're going to kind of throw all our eggs in one basket. And so it's kind of scary. So a novel thing that we did this time was we had a little test kitchen of different people throughout our office that can kind of go in and play with this software and give our analysis. Here's where things aren't working for us. Here's where we think we need to go. And we tested out several different things over the last 9 months. It's like, okay, I think it's time to pull the trigger on this. So there's a heavy financial commitment to it, and just really the pucker factor of like, I hope this works.
Well, I mean, did
So,
you
yeah,
create communities?
Sorry, go.
Did you create any type of like communities? Essentially, you said test pilot. So you probably had someone in the biz dev side, someone on the finance side, someone in the operations side that all had to test these different components of whatever the ERP or software that you're looking to. Did you do it as individuals, or did you do it as more than individuals?
Yeah, more than individuals. Like on the operations side, we had a studio director, a project manager, and then a job captain, so they could kind of see all sides of it and like how they're going to work within it. And then a couple of the accounting people, and then actually more than a couple of accounting people, because it started off with just being in the accounting software. And what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we were just so done with our accounting software, and I would just turn it over to my CFO to go find something new. And she did. And we started implementing it. And 2 years later, it was never implemented because it was just going to be so dang complicated. Like, okay, so we spent a lot of money, time, and effort and just pulling the plug on it, throwing it out. Nope, not going to happen. Which is hard. And, and we started this is our second CRM that we have now, still not fully utilized, kind of expensive, still a little bit clunky. Went through the second trend. Nope. Toss that away too. We're going to throw all in, because we did finally get some buy-in from the people that are going to be working on it. And that, like, yes, this is going to do, what are the pros and cons from what we have now? Because it is expensive too, right? And so yeah, so it's some of that learning process of trying to figure it out with not just one person, which is what I had done in the past too. So let's get a group of people that can jump in and have some say, not just, yes, this is going to work or not. Give me some pros and cons on it, or not going with it. So,
well, you definitely brought about some good learning lessons, something that I think we could, if you were to just one learning lesson, because, sunk cost fallacy, what's a learning lesson that you would take, in terms of, you already talked about, involving more people, but you had one person before, right? It was a CFO and then it took 2 years, and then you decided not to implement. So what's a learning lesson from that?
I mean, like we said, I think having a community or committee of people to vet it. And, I'm not a micromanager at all, because my D is very low. Remember, that's off the screen there. And so that's just not my style. So one, I try to be hands off, but I've realized too that, like, I still got to have my hands in there a little bit to be able to know that we're vetting it, how we're vetting it, and that it is going to be the right solution, and that we've tested it out enough, and really getting the buy-in. Because I've been trying to preach certain things for so long and it just doesn't stick. So whenever we can get buy-in and have it be somebody else's thing, like can't remember it was managing people from what matters. I read it on my annual retreat this year. And one of the things that they talked about was don't give somebody their standard operating procedures, or don't tell somebody what their job is. Have them tell you, have them write it down. So then they've got the buy-in, and then you guys can build it together. And if you continue to do that, that person in that role will own that for as long as they have it. So it's like, yeah, it sounds like a little bit more work, but boy, there's no other better way to create that buy-in.
Yeah, the results are so drastically different when you get buy-in.
So,
Justin?
Yeah, but I was gonna say my thing is like, boy, if I could start this all over again, if I had all this stuff when I started, that'd be great. But man, it would not be as much fun, right?
Well, that actually leads right into our last question very beautifully, which is, if you could go back 20 years, Mark, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, one of the things that I did I'm in a men's group called Junto, right? And one of the things that we really spent some time on is, where do you want to be spending your time? Where do you think you're going to be in your highest and best use? And so for me, like, I was able to put it into 3 buckets, right? I like being an architect. And so I want to make sure I spend time and focus time on that. I like driving our business growth, and I like meeting new people and being a part of that business development team. So growing our business. So like SPS Plus is a project that I like working on. I like building projects and I like people projects. And so finding out where you want to spend your time and then being really diligent about spending your time in those areas and not getting caught up in the whirlwind, because there's so many distractions every single day, that how can you be diligent to spend your time in those areas to be purposeful and do the things that you want to do. And that's where I think you have the biggest results, the greatest happiness, and things like that.
It's the place where people are blind to, right? Everybody has goals and has aspirations and all these things, but it's the, what are you saying no to, because you only have so much time to do these things, right? These goals, these, buckets, right? You can only get so much of it. So there's a lot of asks that happen every day for everybody, that if you stay true to your buckets and say, like, does it belong in one? If not, I got to say no to. And it's a difficult thing to do, but if mastered, I completely agree with you. You're living your best life.
Yep, totally.
Awesome. This has been tons of fun. A lot of excitement. Lots of nuggets. I love the candor across the board. But if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, Mark, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can jump on our website and find me, but I'm only a text away. Am I allowed to give my phone number out? Because
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, 602-522-2190. I've had it since I was 18 years old, and so I've had it forever. But really, like, I love talking to people. People ask for architectural advice. I can pay it. Nope, because sometimes if it's just a 2-minute conversation, I'm happy to share with you the knowledge that I have, because people have done it for me my entire career, and I want to continue to pay that forward. So.
I love that. I will throw that as well as the website and your show all in the show notes. And is there anything else you'd like to tell the people before we say goodbye?
No, this has been super fun. And Justin, will appreciate the time that you've given me here today. And if you need any sort of architecture help, come and find us, because we're the best out there.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. This has been a blast to your listeners. So until next time, adios.
Adios.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
Keep building scale.
Scale.